Matt, tell us about the situation for you when this magnitude 8.9 hit.
Well, it was absolutely unlike anything I've ever experienced before. I've been living here for 8 years now, and this was quite simply the biggest, longest-lasting earthquake I've ever experienced here.
And that's it, because Kyung-la, our reporter there, was saying that she thought it was 4 to 5 minutes. Was that your sense as well?
Oh, yes, the ground was rolling for an extended period of time. I wasn't exactly sure what to do or where to go. I'd never been prepared for anything like this. My wife and I stood outside and basically held on to the outside of our house. You couldn't even stand up. I mean, literally at the peak of these waves that were washing over the ground, you literally could not stay on your feet. You had to kind of crouch down in a ball or put your back against something so you didn't fall. And that's exactly what we did for the length of the duration of it, which I would say was about probably a minute to 2 minutes. It felt like a lot longer than that, let me tell you.
Indeed. And are you saying that you live there, or that you're actually traveling there?
I actually live here. I've lived here for the last 8 years, and I live on the west side of the city in a little section of Tokyo called Kichijoji. And yes, there are earthquakes from time to time, but we have never, ever felt anything on the magnitude, the literal magnitude of what we experience today.
And that's exactly the story we hear. Now, Matt, as we are talking, we are looking at this extraordinary wave, another tsunami wave, moving toward the Japanese coast. And where are you located? Are you away from any threat of tsunami coming ashore?
Yes, we're very fortunate to be located quite far inland. Of course, there's some rivers and streams around here, but those aren't being affected by the tsunami. We're I would say a good 10 to 15 miles away from the coastline, so we don't have to really worry about that where we are. But with the footage that we're seeing, the video that we're seeing on the television screens is just, it's absolutely, it's heart-wrenching, actually, because you know that probably a lot of those people did not have a chance to evacuate before the wave hit, even though they were telling people you need to get away from the shorelines, you need to get away from the water. Just watching this wave hit and cars and buildings and houses being swept away in it, I think we're going to see a significant number of casualties, especially up in the northern part of the country where the quake was epicentered.
And as you mentioned, you've been there for a number of years. I do have to apologise because someone was actually talking in my ear when you mentioned the number of years that you've been there. How long did you say you'd been there?
I've been here for 8 years. My wife is Japanese, and she's lived here most of her life. And I can tell you, this was something neither of us we were completely unprepared for this. It was a beautiful spring day. It was sunny outside. I had just come home from a little errand to the grocery store, and all of a sudden, bam! It just hit, and you could tell this was different instantly from other little tremors that we've had before. I mean, it just picked up in intensity. It ramped up. The gentle shaking, and things started coming off the shelves, things started falling off our desks, and you could hear this strange, eerie creaking sound of all of the buildings all around us as they were kind of shaken by this, by the tremor of the ground. And it was something I hope I never have to hear again, but unfortunately we keep getting aftershocks. We've had 3 or 4 so far, and there's probably going to be other ones as well.
And the reality is, I mean, living in Japan, this is something that you're very used to. But as you say, and of course as people who've lived there all their lives, they know when this is different, and this felt very different.
It absolutely did. I think this is going to be a tremor to remember, so to speak, and I think people are going to be talking about this for a long time to come, because really, Tokyo hasn't seen anything like this in decades.
As the tsunami reaches these countries. Well, the magnitude 8.9 earthquake triggered tsunamis along the coast of Japan, and shortly after the tremors, water flooded this coastal city of Kamashi. Well, the sheer force of it swept along cars, trucks, boats, even buildings. Well, the water is rushing under this elevated road in Kamishi, stopping just short of flooding the road itself. And that is just what's so incredible. When you look at those people, you can see drivers who've got out of their cars and have just watched this wall of water just flow underneath them. Quite remarkable there. So you have an idea of the sheer size and scope of these waves, and you're now looking at pictures. We want to bring you pictures, I should say, of Sendai, the capital of Miyagi Prefecture. Well, these pictures came into us about 90 minutes ago, and what you are seeing is a massive wave rushing towards Sendai, eventually Reaching it and inundating the coast, well, local media puts the tsunami scene here at a staggering 10 metres high. Well, we now want to show you some of the scenes in the city of Sendai. These pictures here are of the airport, Sendai Airport, and they came into us a short time ago. You can see people standing on top of the building. The control tower is just there to the left of the screen, and these are people who are obviously taken shelter. They've raced to the top of the building as this 10-metre monster wave hit the city of Sendai. This, of course, is a city of some 1 million people. It is in the northeast, and just quite staggering scenes as you can see the wider picture of the cars, of just the water, the debris. We were actually speaking a little bit earlier about the lack of planes. We were seeing whether or not there were planes. Perhaps they had been warned that the tsunami was coming and was able to get the planes in the air, but we can't really tell from that wider picture, but you can see there just the enormous devastation. Well, let's go back to Anthony Chen, who is in Taipei. Anthony.
Hello. Hi. Yes, Anna. The Taiwan Central Weather Bureau has issued a tsunami warning for Taiwan. The waves are arriving at Taiwan's northern and northeastern and eastern coastal areas. The cities in eastern coast of Taiwan include Hualien, Taitung, Yilan, and the northern port city of Keelung, which are populated areas with more than 1.5 million people living in these four cities. The Central Weather Bureau said that the tsunami is expected around 5:36 p.m. Taiwan local time and 5:44 p.m. respectively, and another wave to hit the northern Taiwan city port of Keelung at 6:12 p.m. Taiwan Central Weather Bureau issued the tsunami warning at 1:46 p.m. with waves expected to be around 50 centimeters to 1 meter at Hualien. At the moment, the government of Taiwan has set up an emergency group to deal with the tsunami, and they are closely monitoring the situation. And currently, the local governments include Hualien, Taitung, Keelung, Yilan, and the new Taipei city government have cancelled schools and businesses, asking residents to return home as soon as possible and move far away from the coastal areas to protect themselves from being washed away by the tsunami waves. Anna?
Anthony, you said that the tsunami wave is expected to hit at some 5:36 p.m. What is the time there now?
The time here right now is 5:45 p.m. It's the same time as Hong Kong.
Okay, so in actual fact, the wave should have hit the coastline by now.
That's right. It's about right now that the waves are actually arriving on the coast of Taiwan. Anna?
Okay, and what are the height of these waves? Do we know how high these waves are?
Well, the government, the Taiwan Central Weather Bureau is expecting about 50 centimeters to 1 meter at Hualien, but currently, from the screen that we can see in live pictures, it's about the waves are not as huge as we expect, but we have to wait and see. Anna?
Okay, all right. So if it is a metre wave that is hitting the shoreline, how will that impact the coast of Taiwan?
At the moment, well, at Hualien, it's very close to the mountain areas, but there are many people. It's a populated city, and Keelung as well. On the northern coast, it's all populated with people. It's going to impact a lot of people living in these areas if the waves are too high and washed up into the land. Anna?
Anthony, what were authorities saying in the lead up to the tsunami hitting? I mean, as you said, the wave has hit some parts of the country, but we know that over the next, some 15, 20 minutes that it will continue to hit other parts of the country. But as you say, we are looking at a live picture there. There isn't a wall of water that we witnessed in Japan. The waves, as your bureau over there has indicated, it would be between 50 centimetres and a metre. So it would appear that Taiwan has perhaps dodged a bullet. Would you say that's correct?
Sorry, can you say that again? I couldn't hear the last word.
Anthony, it would appear that Taiwan has got away unscathed this time from what we know at this very minute, and looking at these pictures of the waves.
That's right. The waves are looking quite minimal at the moment, but we don't really know what will happen later if the waves become bigger and bigger later on. Anna?
Okay, Anthony. That's Anthony Chen joining us there from ET TV. He is a journalist monitoring the situation as the tsunami hits Taiwan as we speak. Well, let's bring in our Chrissy Lou Stout now for more on where the earthquake struck. Chrissy.
All right, thank you very much indeed, Anna. Let's give you an idea of where exactly all of this unfolded. The epicenter of the quake was out here in the sea, about 130 kilometers to the east of the city of Sendai. It took place at a depth of about 24 kilometers. That is very, very shallow. The site, it lies about 373 kilometers from the capital, Tokyo, where buildings shook, the entire population was forced to take cover. And the quake was even felt as far as Beijing, China. But there's no doubting where the greatest impact has been. Now, tsunami waves have affected much of the east coast of Japan, with areas around Tokyo submerged. But the most dramatic scenes we've been watching all afternoon here have been along the coastline on farmland near Sendai. And local media reporting a tsunami of up to 10 meters, that's 33 feet in height here. That's clearly going to have a devastating impact on everything in its path, and we're still trying to understand, get a clearer picture of the total devastation. Now, I want to show you some video out of Tokyo as the earthquake struck this afternoon. This was the scene in our Tokyo bureau earlier on Friday, and you'll be seeing CNN producer Junko Ogura running to her desk. That's some 400 kilometers away from the epicenter. That was what the earthquake looked like, what it felt like in Tokyo earlier today, and the tremors lasted for several minutes. Anna.
Chrissy, we talk a lot about the size and scope of earthquakes. Where does this one rank?
Okay, well, let's bring up another map for you. There's no question that this earthquake is a major event. It is one of the largest in Japan's history. The initial quake measuring a magnitude 8.9, it is officially qualified as a great quake. Quake magnitudes do not directly tell you how much damage has been caused. Now, but by looking at various ranges, we can get some sense of what to expect. Now, starting in the 6s, earthquakes already quite strong and potentially destructive. But when you reach the 7s, they become major events, generally causing serious damage over larger areas. Now, in the 8s, which is what we're reporting on right now, which is what happened in Japan. The quake was 8.9 in magnitude today. The damage, it goes across hundreds of kilometers. Anna, let's get back to you.
Chrissy, thank you for that. Well, let's return to NHK, the public broadcaster, and listen to
in Chiba Prefecture. Now, there has been extensive damage reported across Japan after this earthquake. In Miyagi, in the north of Japan, buildings and cars have left submerged in cities hit by repeated tsunamis. That's the footage you're seeing right now. Police say an unknown number of people are missing in many cities where tsunami waves of up to 7 meters tall swept through low-lying coastal areas. Now, you're seeing a footage from the Sendai airport in northern Japan. The airport has...
Okay, we now want to go to our Ivan Cabrera, who is standing by. Ivan, as we mentioned a little earlier, Taiwan is being hit by that wave. Any reports of damage?
Yeah, when you were talking to that gentleman there in Taiwan, he's basically essentially trying to tell you that there's no way for them to know the extent of any damage, and we're not going to know that. The rule is that you have to wait about 2 hours from the initial arrival, forecasted arrival of the first wave. Then if there's nothing happening within that 2 hours or after those 2 hours, then you're pretty much safe here. So a couple hours from now, if Taiwan is no longer or hasn't been reported any damage or any significant wave heights here, I think we're going to be okay. Philippines is next, 10 to 11 GMT, and authorities now we're getting word have evacuated with good reason, obviously here, right? 12 coastal areas. They've sent maritime warnings to ships at sea, told the smaller fishing boats to come on shore. The larger vessels actually have can pass through it rather safely if they can actually go further away from the coast. As you know, that amplitude is, you just couldn't feel it if you're out in open water there. So those warnings and those coastal evacuations are underway. Then we talk about Indonesia, 10:50 to 11:40 GMT, and there is Hawaii. Again, they've been under a tsunami warning now for a couple of hours here as the civil sirens have been ongoing there, and folks are told to evacuate. Australia from 15:35 to 18:45. And the difference in times here are because of the coastline and the orientation of the countries that you're seeing here. Chile, obviously, very long, right? So it's going to take a while for the wave to get from the north to the south. So there you see the range. And take a look at that, 9:04 GMT. Tomorrow. So we're talking about an event here that is going to be ongoing for some time. It is the worst earthquake to hit Japan in 140 years. It is now ranked
one of the worst earthquakes ever in Japanese history. It's a 7 on the Japanese seismic scale of 0 to 7. That is the same size earthquake as the one that hit the Great Hanshin area back in 1995. Fires breaking out, as you can see, live coverage in the Sendai area, Miyagi Prefecture, north of Japan. For those of you who have just tuned in to NHK World, a major earthquake hit Japan Friday afternoon about an hour ago, hour and 10 minutes ago. Japan's meteorological agency says the quake measured magnitude 8.4. It has revised it upwards to 8.4. The agency has issued a tsunami warning for Japan's Pacific coast. In northeastern Japan's Iwate Prefecture, tsunami waves of over 4 meters were observed soon after the quake. The agency is warning that the tsunami could reach between 6 and 10 meters. We're getting reports of several buildings on fire. We do not know in regards to the exact amount of damage at this time, but we are soon to get a report from Japan's meteorological agency. They're setting up to find out the extent of the damage. All transportation systems in Tokyo as well as northern Japan has been stopped. Airports closed in Tokyo, Haneda, as well as Narita Airport. A great earthquake has hit Japan. Magnitude 8.4. in northern Japan. Agency has been warning a tsunami ever since the quake, and tsunami has hit the Miyagi Sendai area as our live helicopter camera crew are up covering and showing you exactly what is going on at this time. Deputy Chief Cabinet Secretary Tetsuro Fukuyama told reporters on Friday that the governor of Miyagi Prefecture, where the earthquake has hit hardest, has asked the government to send self-defense force units to deal with the situation and aid the situation. Defense Ministry officials say self-defense force personnel are currently contacting local governments and related agency to assess the extent of the damage. Earlier, Prime Minister Naoto Kan and his cabinet ministers have gathered at the Prime Minister's office, where an emergency task force has been set up to respond to the earthquake. The task force will gather information on damage and prepare for more possible tsunamis. Japan's Foreign Minister Takeaki Matsumoto has ordered his officials to start preparing to accept foreign assistance. He has also told them to check on the safety of foreigners living here in Japan. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center has issued a tsunami warning not just for Japan, but also for Russia, Marcus Island, the Northern Marianas, Guam, Wake Island, and Taiwan. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center has issued a tsunami warning not just for Japan, where a tsunami has already struck, and you can see some of the damages so far in Miyagi Prefecture, northern Japan, and the Sendai area, but also for Russia, Marcus Island, the Northern Marianas, Guam, Wake Island, and Taiwan. For those of you who have just tuned in and living anywhere close to the coastal areas of Russia, Marcus Island, Northern Marianas, Guam, Wake Island, and Taiwan, please do not go near the waters. Move to higher ground as soon as possible. You're watching NHK World, and a major earthquake hit Japan Friday afternoon. This happened about an hour and 20 minutes ago. Japan's meteorological agency says the quake measured magnitude 8.4. The agency has issued a tsunami warning for Japan's Pacific coast. In northern Japan's Iwate Prefecture, tsunami waves of up to 4 meters were observed soon after the quake. The agency is warning that the tsunami could be between 6 and 10 meters. You're seeing some of the tsunami damage so far in Miyagi Prefecture, in the Sendai area, where some of the homes and farms have been flooded when the tsunami went upstream a river. According to the Transport Ministry, Haneda International Airport has reopened 2 of its 4 runways. Haneda International Airport has reopened 2 of its 4 runways. The airport had earlier closed all runways. Haneda International Airport has reopened 2 of its 4 runways. The Japan Road Traffic Information Center and police say expressways around Tokyo and northeastern Japan have been closed. The Japan Road Traffic Information Center and police say expressways around Tokyo and northeastern Japan have been closed. According to Toshiba Elevator, it assumes that most elevators came to a halt in the region affected by the disaster. According to Toshiba Elevator, it assumes that most elevators came to a halt in the region affected by the disaster. At the moment, the company has been collecting information about mechanical troubles. The Industry Minister's Nuclear and Industrial Safety Agency has put in place an emergency center for the earthquake. It'll collect information concerning damages caused by the earthquake to nuclear power plants around the country. For those of you who just tuned into NHK World, you're seeing live coverage of Miyagi Prefecture in the Sendai area where a tsunami has struck. A major earthquake hit Japan on Friday afternoon. Japan's meteorological agency says the quake measured magnitude 8.4. The agency has issued a tsunami warning for Japan's Pacific coast. Some of that tsunami already hitting areas like this one, as you see live. Miyagi Prefecture and Sendai area, where tsunami went upstream and has engulfed some farmland, some homes, cars, trucks, and boats. The agency says, meanwhile, the Industry Ministry's Nuclear and Industrial Safety Agency says it will have a news conference every hour to bring the latest information about the damage caused by the earthquake, obviously to power plants around the country. 5 have been shut down. Japan's meteorological agency has revised the magnitude of the quake to 8.4 from 7.9. It's the largest earthquake since the Great Hanshin earthquake back in 1995. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center has issued a tsunami warning for Japan, Russia, Marcus Island, the Northern Marianas, Guam, Wake Island, and Taiwan. Once again, the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center has issued a tsunami warning for Japan, Russia, Marcus Island, Northern Marianas, Guam, Wake Island, and Taiwan. And here is more live footage of Miyagi Prefecture, Sendai area. Live coverage of what the tsunami is doing in Miyagi Prefecture in Sendai City. That tsunami obviously going upstream, engulfing some of the farm and homes in that area. You're seeing a tsunami going upstream, engulfing some farms and homes in that area. Major earthquake hitting Japan on Friday afternoon. Japan's meteorological agency says the quake measured 8.4. The agency has issued a tsunami warning for Japan's Pacific coast. That tsunami obviously engulfing some areas in Miyagi Prefecture, as we're showing from our live helicopter coverage in Sendai. In northeastern Japan's Iwate Prefecture, tsunami waves of over 4 meters were observed soon after the quake. The agency is warning that the tsunami could reach between 6 to 10 meters. Japan's meteorological agency has revised the magnitude of 8.4 from 7.9, the largest earthquake since the Great Hanshin earthquake back in 1995. During that time, the earthquake was the size of 7 on the Japanese seismic scale of 0 to 7. It is the same highest level, 7 on the Japanese seismic scale of 0 to 7. Obviously, we can see from this live coverage from our helicopter in Miyagi Prefecture, Sendai, Japan, big part of that area has been flooded from the tsunami. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center has issued a tsunami warning not just for Japan, once again for Russia as well, Marcus Island, Northern Marianas, Guam, Wake Island, and Taiwan. For those of you living near the coast or are near the coast, please move to higher ground as soon as possible.
We're looking at these pictures. We can see something is ablaze there on the ground as this very strange wave of mud and debris with boats included and cars and all sorts of things. It's when you see something like this, Ivan, unfold before your very eyes that you get an idea of there's nowhere to run when you have something like that coming so fast toward you. And of course, you know, it appears to be fairly slow when you're looking aerially, but if you're on the ground and that is moving at such a fast speed, you can see the boat there.
Just unbelievable pictures. There's a building or a couple of buildings that are on fire and are moving with the tsunami. That is just something you just never seen before, and there's a pretty big vessel there getting pushed to shore. The one good thing that I'm seeing here, there are homes now in the way, but generally, if you've noticed, Rosemary, this has been through farmland here. There's that fire that I've been talking about, a moving blaze along the tsunami. Just unbelievable stuff here.
And from what we've been seeing on some of the news feeds coming in, some of the video, courtesy of CNBC Asia.
Look at that. Oh, unreal. Major tsunami damage already we've seen on some of the video, and this looks to be the tsunami generated by this major earthquake as it rolls across the Pacific. And we do have a watch in place, a tsunami watch that includes the state of Hawaii until 7 a.m. Hawaiian time, Hawaii Standard Time on Friday morning. And right now it's what, 9:30 in Hawaii. So this will be a concern heading into the overnight hours and early tomorrow morning. We're monitoring the possible arrival time of a tsunami in some of these areas that are impacted. Let me give you an update now on the latest warnings and watches that have come in. The tsunami warning is in effect for Japan, the entire coast there, Russia, Marcus Islands, the Northern Marianas, Guam, Wake Island, and Taiwan. And then the tsunami watch is for the Philippines, Midway Island, Indonesia, looks like Solomon Island included, and again, the state of Hawaii under a tsunami watch until 7 a.m. local time.
And also after the earthquake, 20 minutes later, a 7.4 aftershock. So again, we are looking at video right now, courtesy of CNBC Asia, and it's hard from our vantage point to see exactly what we're looking at, but it does not look like anything that is normal. I mean, we're not looking at a normal beach. It looks like water is going in one direction, and it's not stopping. So that would be something that we've seen video before in the past of a tsunami, and this is what...
Chris, we have seen homes and vehicles
just moments ago
in this water being rushed, pulled out, if you will. We understand from some of the reports we're reading, maybe 13 feet high, the tsunami wave, washing away cars, of course, tearing away buildings along the coast near the epicenter of where this earthquake took place. There were reports of injuries in Tokyo. We're waiting to get more information on that as well. In a lot of locations along Japan's coast, footage that we're seeing just shows the massive damage there from the tsunami, maybe causing more damage than the quake itself from what we're seeing.
And what we're looking at here, it says tsunami of 7 meters. And if that is true, we're looking at more than 22 feet, almost 23 feet high tsunami. And we were looking at video earlier coming in. Again, this is from CNBC Asia. And we were seeing debris. We were seeing even some fire on top of that debris. And it was moving, it looked like it was moving into fields. And right now, it's hard to say exactly what's going on here. It looks kind of to me like some of the water may be going back into the water. Like some of the waves may have gone onshore, then maybe moving back.
It looks to be that way. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center in Hawaii said, of course, that they have the tsunami warning for Japan, Russia, Marcus Island, and the Northern Marianas. A tsunami watch has been issued for Guam, Taiwan, Philippines, Indonesia, and the U.S. state of Hawaii. For Hawaii, a tsunami watch until 7 a.m. Friday.
And I'm looking at a tweet right now. It's a breaking news tweet, and they're courtesying the BBC, the British Broadcast Company, and they're saying that an update, 5 nuclear plants shut down in Japan after the quake, and tsunami waves continue to hit. And that is what we believe we're looking at right now, courtesy of CNBC Asia.
All right, and we're continuing to monitor the updates coming in here, possibly more waves striking the coastal areas of Japan. And you can see on our map there, 8.9. The USGS now saying this is an 8.9 magnitude earthquake. So that was upgraded. Initially, our reports coming in about an hour ago, 7.9, then 8.8. Now we're at 8.9 for this earthquake. And obviously a big concern as far as the tsunami wave that has been generated by this quake. Several areas of concern here across the Pacific heading into the overnight hours.
And let's talk now about the tsunami travel times, if we can. And what we saw just moments ago, we saw a video of a tsunami coming on shore in Japan. We're not exactly sure exactly where it was in Japan, but what you're looking at right now, this is showing us where the earthquake is right here. Okay, actually, we're going to go ahead right now and talk with Dale Grant with the USGS. He is, we're trying to get that right now. I believe we're getting him on the phone. We're trying to patch it through here. This is happening minute by minute. Again, breaking news here on the Weather Channel. A magnitude 8.9 earthquake off the coast of Japan. And we're trying to get a hold of someone from the USGS to give us an update, perhaps put things in a perspective for us. And we understand Dale is on the phone right now. And Dale, what can you tell us about this earthquake, or at least what's your initial reaction?
This is what we would consider one of the great quakes. We had an 8.8 in Chile last year and a 9 in Sumatra on December 26, 2004. So this is one of the larger events recorded. This event is certainly caused a lot of damage, but we have not yet heard of any casualties.
That is amazing. We're waiting to hear that as well, you know, as far as damage or any fatalities or injuries from this. Can you put this into perspective when we talk about a depth of about, 10 kilometers or so? How does this rate? Is this a shallow quake? Talk about that for us.
Yes, this is a shallow event, and a shallow event in the water, which is the most dangerous as far as generating a tsunami. What has happened here? When an event occurs this close to the surface, that energy is all taken up to the surface and less goes into the ground. That energy goes into the water, and then that is what generates the tsunami as it approaches any land mass.
All right, and we want to remind our viewers you're looking at live images from Japan, from CNBC. And Dale, are you seeing this, what we're seeing as far as, the cars and some of the homes that are being pulled out into the water? Have you seen some of that?
Yes, I have. We have CNN here at the office, and we have seen some of these images.
Can you put in perspective for people who are not familiar with how the magnitude scale works? And you said this is a great quake, one of the great quakes. Can you kind of give us a perspective of just how big this really is on the scale?
every time a magnitude goes up by 1, it goes up by a factor of 10, and even a little bit more than that in energy. So to compare this with any, like Haiti was a 7, this is over 100 times bigger than that event.
So obviously our focus shifts to the tsunami warnings that are out. Can you give us an update on that and what you expect a quake like this, being in open water, to do as far as tsunamis go?
Well, I think the tsunamis have already begun hitting the coast. And the city of Sendai, which has a very large population of over 1 million people, was within 80 miles of this event. So we have had reports of the initial wave being in the 5 meter, or about 14 feet or more. And this is a very, very devastating occurrence. Of course, the one in Sumatra was quite a bit bigger, but there were a lot of contributing factors to that.
And Dale, you talk a little bit about people that may be watching us right now who have friends and relatives in Alaska or Hawaii. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I am sure that the tsunami centers have been notifying emergency services throughout all of our territory and Hawaii, and making them aware of the potential. But I'm not certain. I have not been told by the tsunami centers what they are expecting. But they are the ones who monitor the buoys and the other instruments that measure the energy as it goes through the water.
Dale, can you talk about the aftershocks that we're hearing about in Japan?
Yes, we've recorded a number of, in themselves, very major events. We actually have a 7.1 on our website right now as an aftershock, and that's the same size of the quake that we recorded a few days ago, which is now looking like a precursor. So with a magnitude this big and the event that shallow, we are expecting aftershocks to take place for quite some time.
And I hate to put you on the spot here, but for Japan specifically, how does this quake rank?
Oh, I think it ranks as one of the biggest they've had. In our search, we have not really seen many, if any, bigger than this.
And we talk about the distance. As far as we're seeing, what, 231 miles northeast of Tokyo is where the epicenter was. Is that, what's the factor for that? I mean, is that relatively close, or is that far away? What would you say to that?
Well, again, distance away from the actual epicenter is it is relational to just how much energy gets to that area. So the closer you are, the more dangerous it is. The farther away you are, the less dangerous. So we have had reports of severe shaking, but the Japanese have such strong building codes. We haven't heard of any major structural damage, though in the town of Sendai, we have heard of structural damage, and that is to be expected.
And we talk also to this point that people might not be familiar with the Pacific Rim here and Japan. This is an earthquake-prone area. We talk about the buildings and just how ready they are for people who might not understand. When we look at Haiti and how devastated they were, I would imagine this is like on the exact opposite end of the spectrum.
It is exactly that. Japan has some of the most stringent building restrictions of any country in the world. They are so earthquake prone, having their island intersect 4 tectonic plates. So they have earthquakes all the time. But they are by far and away the best prepared. They have the most seismometers per geographic area. They are just one of the best because they have to be. It is such a dangerous place.
Yeah, and as you said, we haven't heard of any fatalities just yet. We could, obviously have some problems here with the water and the flooding situation that will develop because of the tsunami, but we've already upgraded this magnitude rating. Do you think that will happen again? How quickly, can you talk about how that works, how you're getting the rating on the quake?
Actually, the initial data that comes in is what we call saturated. This quake is so big, all the near stations are basically pegged. So with time, we're able to then analyze the data from stations a little bit further away, and then we have our senior scientists here who analyze this. And about, I'd say, a half hour ago is when we updated to the 8 and 9, and that is our final on that.
And Dale, right now we are looking at video courtesy of CNBC Asia of a huge fire. It looks like it's some kind of a plant or storage facility. And one point here is we're looking at video and it's daylight. In the U.S., it's dark right now, but it's daylight there. What do you make of the time of the 8.9 magnitude earthquake happening at 2:46 in the afternoon? Do you think that makes a difference?
It does. That means that a lot of people were out and about, so they were in the actual infrastructure at that time. But again, their infrastructure is so well built. But with that earthquake of that magnitude, it quite likely has ruptured gas lines. And that is my assumption here, though I really don't know the exact fire that you're describing.
All right. Is there a big concern in this area for severe aftershocks? I know we've already seen some very strong ones, upwards of 7.9, possibly 7.4 as far as the aftershock goes. Are we going to see more of that, do you think?
Oh, yes. Aftershocks on a quake like this could quite likely go on for weeks at least, if not longer.
So does the magnitude of the earthquake determine how long you'll see aftershocks?
Yes, and it also determines how big those aftershocks might be.
So is it kind of like you have a big earthquake and it just kind of settles down, kind of in the same way? It could ramp up and then it kind of settles down as well?
Yes, and that's what aftershocks are doing. There's been such displacement by the 8.9 that these aftershocks are trying to bring the geographic structure back to a state of equilibrium. So they're just breaking back and forth until it finally settles down, and that can take quite a time.
And again, we want to tell our viewers what we're looking at here. We're looking at video coming in. It's live from CNBC Asia, and it looks like we're seeing water in places we typically would not see water. And with us right now on the phone, we have Dale Grant with the USGS. And Dale, we know this is very early. This happened just a short while ago, less than an hour ago. Is that right? Less than an hour ago.
An hour and 40 minutes, actually.
Okay, so it's 2 hours. Almost 2 hours, an hour and 40 minutes ago. So this is relatively early. Dale, what concerns you the most? Like, imagine 5 hours from now or a day from now, what concerns you the most that you think we might find out?
I would say that I think everyone will be pleasantly surprised that the Japanese building codes are so strong that with a quake of this magnitude, casualties, I think, will be quite limited, which I think is amazing in itself.
Okay, so based on that, Japan, one of the most prepared cities in the world, you say, correct?
Yes.
What would happen if an earthquake like this struck Los Angeles?
Oh, I couldn't even begin to speculate because the tectonics are so different. So the San Andreas Fault is basically a strike slip, whereas what we're seeing here is more of a thrust fault, and those tend to be far more damaging. Just like the ones down in Chile, that's a subduction zone, and that's why their quakes tend to be so much more damaging. So I couldn't really speculate on the potential damage. Let's hope we never see it.
So I'm trying to clarify here with you, Dale, just to be sure. So what you're saying is that trying to make that comparison is not fair because they're different faults and it'd be like apples to oranges kind of a thing as far as earthquakes go. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And Dale, Crystal here, for our viewers that are just tuning in, can you talk one more time just about the magnitude of this, the earthquake scale? Obviously, it's logarithmic, so how big of a deal is this when you've got an 8.9?
This is by far and away one of the great quakes. Great quakes are determined as being over magnitude 8. And every time you go up one magnitude, you generate about 10 times the force. And even a little bit more now, as we've determined. So a magnitude 7, like in Haiti, this 8.9 is literally 100 times or more stronger than that quake.
And of course, you said earlier, being shallow and out in the water, this is the recipe, a terrible recipe for a very strong tsunami.
Exactly.
And So you're saying that we can see more aftershocks out of this. We've already seen, you said, a 7.1, correct?
Yes, we've had a 7.1 aftershock.
And this can go on for weeks.
Yeah, we saw that in Haiti. It was several weeks after.
Well, in the same way in Chile, they went on for months. Sumatra went on for over a year.
Over a year.
And so I want to go back to the fact that it's daylight there. Do you think that helps with the warning system as far as tsunamis go?
Well, their warning system is monitored 24/7, so it's always active. I'm sure that they had warnings out immediately. I mean, they are one of the best.
Yeah, absolutely. It looked like up and down the coast of Japan, we're already seeing the high water impact areas and now waiting to see where it spreads out further in the Pacific. Any idea, I know you're not the Tsunami Warning Center, but can you talk a little bit more about that and what your concern would be? Would you be worried about the state of Hawaii?
Again, I really cannot talk about that because I don't have the details.
Sure.
And without that, it's pure speculation on my part, and my bosses wouldn't like that.
Okay, fair enough. And Dale, can you give us some insight to what's happening inside the USGS right now, or maybe what's happening in the equivalent in Japan?
Well, at the time, we had about 3 or 4 people on duty. I would say there's probably about 15 or 20 people now in the office. We're handling media requests. We're doing phone interviews such as this. We have people working on the aftershocks. We have people working to determine specifically the fault, the model, how it looks, how it can generate energy. So, yeah, it's been busy.
And Dan, right now, again, we're looking at video courtesy of CNBC Asia at water in homes. It looks like the tsunami has come ashore and it was into homes. What's the biggest concern, you think, right now?
Actually, I think the tsunami, the big one, would be generated by the major earthquake. After that, there will be nothing of that size unless there is a bigger quake, and I can't imagine that there would be.
So right now we think that as far as, we see somebody waving a flag right now from the upstairs of a home as we're watching this live right now, courtesy of CNBC Asia. And on the phone with us, we have Dale Grant with the USGS. And Dale, we want to thank you very much for staying with us as we continue to ask these questions and look at this video, amazing video in water where it's obviously not supposed to be. And so you're saying the worst of it is likely over, but the danger is not because of the aftershocks. Is that correct?
Yes, I would say that's probably a good statement.
All right, Dale Grant with the U.S. Geological Society, we really do appreciate your time and giving us that perspective on what's unfolding in Japan with the major earthquake, as you described, a great quake, and of course the tsunami generated by this quake. Dale, we appreciate it. All right.
And of course, we are continuing to watch this video right now. I believe there are live images coming in, courtesy of CNBC Asia. Absolutely amazing. An 8.9 earthquake, 2:46 local time. It's daylight. It's the middle of the day here. People are at work, and a tsunami came on shore, and these homes are flooded. Look at the extent. Blocks and blocks of homes with water all around.
Yeah, I have to say, watching this, Chris, doesn't this remind you a little bit of what you saw with Katrina? Once the levees broke and the water came rushing in, people waving to be rescued from their homes.
Because now it looks like it's still water.
Exactly.
You know, it's not moving in. The tsunami's not coming in right now. The sun is shining and glistening off of the still water. So the tsunami has come on shore here. Now the big question is, what's next? What other areas in the Pacific are going to be affected by the tsunami that we can see affected Japan here? And we just spoke with Dale Grant from the USGS, calling this one of the great quakes. Says anything over an 8.0 is considered a great quake, and this is one of the large events recorded. And lots of damage. You can see right here, lots of damage.
Large and shallow, just off the coast of Japan, and of course that is going to generate a tsunami. That's exactly what you need for a tsunami to develop, and that's what's unfolding. Aftershocks as large as 7.1 on the scale. we could see these for weeks, even up to a year.
And keep in mind, we're talking about these major events, he's saying. Aftershocks of that size are considered major events as we look at this video of water inland where it's not supposed to be because of tsunami bringing it onshore. This is a major event of an aftershock of 7.1. The initial earthquake in 8.9. Keep in mind, Haiti was a 7. Okay, and these aftershocks are Haiti strength. And this one, the force, 100 times bigger than Haiti. So this is one of, as Dale says, Dale Grant with the USGS says, this is one of the great quakes. Shallow also, the fact that it's shallow, a little bit more than 15 miles deep, means a lot of the energy goes up into the water, helping to create that tsunami.
And these videos are just incredible. These images, I should say. This is from CNBC Asia. And Chris, earlier when we first started looking at this, you could see buildings burning, floating on top of the water. It was just, it just took your breath away.
We were watching, yes, we were watching some of the, it looked like the tsunami as it was coming on shore. And it's some of the video, if you've seen video of tsunami, it was very similar. It was just kind of that slow moving. You had the debris, and some of the debris had fire on top of it as it was moving on shore. Now, a little bit more than an hour and 40 minutes ago, this happening, and we first heard reports. It was initially told to us, preliminary, it was a 7.9. That was upgraded to 8.8. We could barely believe it. We had a double, triple check, and now the latest from the USGS is that it is an 8.9. And we asked Dale Grant, why you preliminary, then why did you adjust it? Well, the sites closest to it, they peg, they top out. There's too much noise, and so you have to analyze the other sensors a little bit farther away from the epicenter, and that's how you narrow it down and you get a better reading. You get a clearer picture, if you will, of exactly what's taking place there based on all of the instruments. And so what we have right now here is at 2:46 local time, just off the coast of Japan, 231 miles northeast of Tokyo, an 8.9 earthquake. And we're looking at video right now, courtesy of CNBC Asia, of the aftermath of a tsunami generated by that 8.9 earthquake.
And Chris, I was reading some reports that obviously we don't have a tsunami watch for the California coast, but they'll continue to, you know, watch the situation as it develops, and if that warrants a watch.
And we have new video right now coming into the Weather Channel here, and we're seeing it. Crystal and I sitting here seeing it for the first time as well. This is coming to us from CCTV, assuming this is one of the Japanese stations here. And there's some of the damage as well. And we were told also, Dale Grant, that Japan is ready, one of the most prepared, stringent building codes. But an earthquake, as he says, a great earthquake of this size, you're going to have damage.
Absolutely. And if you're just joining us, to recap what's going on, major earthquake hit Japan, just off the coast of Japan. Honshu is the name, near the coast of Honshu, and it was an 8.9. We do know that is the final rating on the scale. That is a great quake, according to the USGS. Obviously, anything over magnitude 8 is going to be considered a massive, devastating earthquake. This did happen in the water. It was a shallow quake, but that's what generated the tsunami. Haven't heard of any immediate reports of deaths or injuries. Waiting to see if any word comes in. The force of the waves, though, washing away cars, buildings, some of the roadways as that tsunami took over the north coast of Japan, and a second major earthquake of 7.4 magnitude was reported as the aftershocks shook the region. So again, we're bringing you up to speed on what's happening here. We have tsunami watches out, which do include the state of Hawaii until 7 a.m. Friday morning. Tsunami warnings
Crystal,
as well.
Really quick, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm looking at Twitter right now, and I'm seeing some information coming in that we might have a tsunami warning now for Hawaii. I'm trying to confirm that at this time. But we are, again, looking live now at some video. But right now, I'm trying to confirm whether or not it has been upgraded to a warning for Hawaii.
And we are looking at Pacific Tsunami Warning Center for the latest information.
And we do have, I'm just looking right now, tsunami message, it's number 3. A tsunami warning is issued for the state of Hawaii, effective at 9:31 local time. And it's going through here talking about the fact that a earthquake has occurred.
That's right. There it is. All right, so a developing situation now as we watched that video, the images of the wave rolling across the Pacific, possibly as high as 14 feet, that initial wave. And we saw video of it earlier, courtesy of our feed here from CNBC. And that wave is tracking its way across the Pacific and could potentially impact the state of Hawaii. So that's why there is now a tsunami warning posted for the Hawaiian Islands. And as I'm speaking, I'm gathering the information here so I can update you on what the tsunami warning says. Hawaiian coastal waters within 40 nautical miles, including the Hawaiian Islands, impacted here. And this will be in effect, it looks like, until early tomorrow morning, 7 a.m., the tsunami warning. These images you're seeing out of Japan after the great quake, the 8.9 magnitude earthquake caused a tsunami, generated a tsunami there. The water rushed through and carried back with it roads, cars, buildings. You can see fires there. We were reading of a fire to an oil refinery. Look at that smoke. These images, everyone's talking about it on Twitter and whatnot. It is just horrific, really, to watch this unfold. And we saw some people waving from their homes, hoping to be rescued there. But again, this is more of an imminent danger now for the state of Hawaii. Now that we have a tsunami warning, we'll continue to cover that. Watching on Twitter as some of the information comes in as well. Please share your thoughts and any info you have with us. We would appreciate that. We spoke with Dale Grant of the USGS to get an update on his thoughts, and he said this is as big as it gets, really, above magnitude 8, and you're dealing with a major earthquake, and the recipe here for a large tsunami as we're seeing unfold. So tsunami warning in effect. Japan, Russia, Marcus Islands, Philippines also included in that, and now the state of Hawaii. So a lot to cover here. I'm just getting word of Dr. David Cicero is on the phone.
It's Robert Cicero.
Perfect. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center. All right. Dr. David, can I just call you that? Dr. Robert on the phone. All right. We're looking forward to talking to you and getting an update now. What can you tell us about current tsunami warnings?
The whole Pacific is in a warning at this point.
Okay, and that does include the state of Hawaii until 7 a.m. Where we saw the damage, of course, that this initial tsunami caused in Japan. Are you watching as this wave tracks its way across the Pacific? What can you tell us about that and some of the arrival times?
I don't have the arrival times here. My understanding is it'll hit Kauai about 3 in the morning. And we don't have, frankly, any way of really tracking it other than our the models which indicate the time of arrivals. So in other words, there's no real-time gauges out in the Pacific except for the very few deep ocean gauges, and also there's water level instruments on some of the islands and, of course, along a lot of the coastlines.
Dr. Robert, what kind of information can you get out to the public, people that live, for example, in some of these areas impacted?
Well, it's usually up to the local officials. Some cases in small islands or something, it might be the police that'll take care of this. Other places, it's emergency managers. But here in Hawaii, we have coastal run-up, or I should say inundation zones, that are declared pretty well, and they're in the phone books, in the white pages. And so people need to take a look at that. But also here in Hawaii, there's good police presence, and there's sirens and so forth. So we had a pretty good run-through a couple of months ago, and people knew what to do here. So there's a lot of different efforts around the Pacific. There's a higher awareness now since the Sumatra event in 2004, so that people are very aware of tsunamis, and so public education is a lot better than it used to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And from what you know right now, do you think the California coast is under any threat?
I imagine there are some areas that are under more of a threat than others. I don't have the I don't have the model right in front of me. Somebody else is working on that right now.
Okay.
So I think the beam of the tsunami is headed more towards the south. Just a minute. Can you hang on just a second?
Sure, no problem.
Dave, can you show me that screen?
Dr.
Dave,
Robert Cicero, he's getting us more information from the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center about what's currently going on. Pacific Tsunami Warning Center, and they have the latest information as we monitor the tsunami warning for the state of Hawaii. Are you there, Dr. Robert?
Yes, I am. I'm waiting for a model to show up here.
Sure.
Yeah, it looks like the beam is heading more towards South America. There are some areas, it doesn't look like the West Coast is going to be impacted as much.
Okay.
The West Coast of the U.S., I mean.
Sure. While you're waiting for the information, could you just break down, for people who don't understand, what is a tsunami? You talk about the beam. What are we dealing with here?
Oh, well, let's see, how can I explain this in simple terms? Well, first of all, the most important thing to realize is this is a very shallow water wave. In other words, it's not like if you drop a pebble in a lake, you see a wave propagating outwards, and it looks like a circle.
Sure.
But if you have a tsunami in the water, the amount of energy involved and the wavelengths involved are huge. We're talking hundreds of miles from wave peak to wave peak. And so for that reason, since the ocean is only mile or mile and a half deep, something like that, in most places, the variations in water depth have an effect on the wave, and so what that does is it causes a change in wave height depending on how the wave interacts with the ocean bottom. And so also there's a direction associated with the earthquake source. So you can think of the earthquake in many cases much like rolling a log into a shallow lake. So on the ends of the log you don't have much of a wave, but along perpendicular to the direction of the log rolling into the lake you do have higher beams. So or you can think of it almost like a flashlight. You have a beam and a flashlight, and if you look to either side you don't see much light. Well, it's very similar to a tsunami. It works more or less the same way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So the bigger generated wave, if you will, was along the coast of Japan, and we should see lesser heights as this works its way closer to the state of Hawaii, for example.
Well, not necessarily, because you have there are refraction effects. In other words, this is even more difficult to explain. I don't have a good analog in mind at the moment, but because of the physiography, the shape of the ocean bottom, you have some areas which naturally enhance a wave no matter where it comes from. And for this particular one, it looks like we've got a beam heading more or less right at Hawaii, and there are lesser beams which are off to the side, and you do have situation, because we're on a sphere. If all of the let's call them the tsunami rays, or the I don't have the right terms for this, but if you were to add up all the energy in all the different directions at once, what you would find is some areas have more energy than others, and as you go out from Japan, just like with a flashlight, the beam gets wider and wider and wider, and you would think it would the strength of the beam would diminish. And for the most part, that's true. But because you have some parts of the ocean that are more shallow than other parts, you can concentrate the beam. And then there's another effect, and that is because we're on a sphere, all those beams tend to spread out for a while, but eventually, because we're on a sphere, they'll begin to come together again. And in that case, you can actually have a wave that's higher halfway around the planet than it might be right at the source, because these rays begin to combine. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, Dr. Robert. I hope you don't mind me referring to you as Dr. Robert.
Just call me Robert. That's fine.
Robert, all right. If you could, for people that are just tuning in, you're with the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center. Can you give us an update now on the warnings and what are we most concerned about here within the next couple of hours?
Well, I don't. The next couple hours, I don't think there's very much to be too concerned about. It's going to take quite a while.
Sure.
It's not going to hit Hawaii until about 3 a.m. here, local time.
All right, so 3 a.m. Is there a particular, can you give us the lay of the islands along the Hawaiian chain where we could see more damage?
Well, Kauai would be first, and then some bays have more of a resonant effect.
Sure.
For example, Hilo, no matter where the tsunami comes from, it tends to resonate. You can think of it much like blowing into a Coke bottle or something, and you hear a tone. Well, it's kind of the same thing with a tsunami. You have these waves, and as they hit the bay tends to resonate and amplify. Does that make sense?
Yes, and for people that are just tuning in, we're looking at live images from CNBC of a fire burning north of Tokyo, and we're talking on the phone with Robert Cesaro, giving us Cesaro, sorry about that, updates on what's going on as far as the tsunami that was generated by this great quake, 8.9 magnitude, shallow quake in the water. And Robert, if again you can describe what that does to generate a tsunami.
Well, any sort of disturbance in the ocean bottom, anything that displaces a large amount of water produces a wave. That typically is caused by an earthquake because you have, if the earthquake is shallow, then you have some part of the ocean bottom, and we're talking for something this size, perhaps 1,000 kilometers of ocean bottom suddenly drop or rise. Either way, you have a displacement of water, and the water, in terms of what the earthquake feels, is almost like just a little skin, and the earthquake has so much power that it moves all that water, as I say, something like 1,000 kilometers or more, and it moves it all at once, and that produces a wave, and that's the tsunami.
All right, and Robert, one more question for you, if you don't mind. As we watch this unfold here, you say 3 a.m. possibly the arrival time for tsunami in Kauai. Do we have any idea of the way, how strong this would be at that point, or what the height of the wave would be?
No, I don't. I've seen just a few models, and as I said, I just got in here a few minutes ago.
I can imagine that.
BBC, so I don't have much information, and as I understand it, I've seen one model that shows about 1.5 meters in Honolulu Harbor, maybe as much as 2 meters or perhaps more in Hilo. I haven't seen anything for Kauai, but it's going to be significant, I'm sure.
All right, and when you say significant, can you put that into perspective?
There'll probably be some damage, certainly strong currents.
Sure.
I think because we're in a warning, we've probably, all the ships in the harbors will be out at sea because in the deep ocean, and by that I mean 200 feet or more, there's not much danger at all. You just don't feel the tsunami. It's only when the tsunami comes ashore, and that's because the wave is traveling about 500 miles an hour, and as the ocean bottom shallows, the front of the wave slows down, but the back of the wave is still coming at the same speed, and it gets so it just builds up and builds up and builds up, and that's why we can get pretty huge tsunami for any kind of a coastline that has a significant amount of sediment apron. And what I mean by that is, let's say you've got an atoll out in the Pacific that's just a few miles across. Well, that's like a pencil in the water, and the tsunami really doesn't feel it.
Sure.
Doesn't notice. But where you have an apron of sediments or a continental shelf, then you have enough run-up, something that'll slow down the advance of the front part of the wave, and that's what actually causes the tsunami to build up.
All right, Robert Cesaro, we appreciate your time from the Tsunami Warning Center. the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center. I know you've got a lot of work cut out for you. Thanks for talking with the Weather Channel. We do appreciate that update. All right, we're getting new information now. One person killed. Not sure if that was related to the earthquake or the tsunami generated by the earthquake just off the coast of Japan. Several injuries being reported as well. A large fire burning near Tokyo. I believe this is an oil refinery. We've been seeing a lot of images of that, and this is new video from one of the Japanese television stations there. And this must have happened during the quake, the aftermath of what the quake left behind. Eventually, you'll see some of the images of all the water that is taking over and really just sucking out cars and homes. People are waiting to be rescued in some of the video we've seen. Chris joining me back now on set. And Chris, we were just getting the update on the tsunami warning for the state of Hawaii from the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center. It looks like the arrival time will be roughly 3 a.m. for that wave to move through.
So this is something that needs to be adhered to. I mean, you need to pay attention to this. If you have friends or family in Hawaii, we don't know exactly the height of the waves when it gets there at this point. It's still preliminary, but the main thing is call your friends and relatives and let them know. You know, not everybody is watching TV. People, I would know, would be camping on the beach right now.
Absolutely.
You know, so give them a call and let them know, hey, we have a major earthquake in Japan. We've seen video of the tsunami there, so we know it's capable of producing a tsunami. And you let people know, hey, you're in danger right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, the earthquake, 8.9 magnitude, that makes this the 5th strongest earthquake in the world since 1900, according to a list we're looking at here. 5th strongest earthquake in the world. Widespread tsunami warnings out, and the current Hawaii warning as well.
And it's not over. I mean, it may have peaked. We may have hit the 8.9, hoping against all hope that that's the strongest one we get. And then the aftershocks afterwards, when we spoke with Dale Grant with the USGS, telling us that we can still see, we have seen aftershocks of 7.1. Keep in mind, Haiti earthquake was a 7. So we can see Haiti strength earthquakes for a few days, maybe even longer, he was telling us. So we can still see, you know, sometimes the initial earthquake can rattle parts of the buildings, then the aftershocks can bring them down. But again, Japan, stringent building codes, likely the best in the world, Dale was telling us.
Yeah, you know, when he we understand the Japanese Prime Minister is speaking.
I offer
We're going to
my
listen in
deepest
here.
sympathy to the people who have suffered the disaster. Regarding our nuclear power facilities, some of the nuclear power plants have stopped automatically, but so far, no radioactive material or radiation has been confirmed to have been leaked to the outside. There has been no information of those lines so far. And given this situation, an emergency disaster response headquarters has been set up with myself as the head. We will secure the safety of the people of Japan, and in order to minimize the damage, the government will make every effort possible. And we ask the people of Japan to continue to be cautious and vigilant and keep tuned in to the reports on the television and radio. And we ask the people of Japan to act calmly.
All right, the Japanese Prime Minister giving an address there. He says the emergency disaster response headquarters have been set up, asking everybody, the people of Japan, to bear with them as they deal with this major disaster unfolding as we head through Friday morning, which happened, by the way, the earthquake at about 2:45 in the afternoon on Thursday.
And if you're just joining us, we're talking about a great earthquake, a major earthquake, 8.9 earthquake. Haiti was a 7. The Chilean earthquake was an 8.8. This is now an 8.9, 231 miles northeast of Tokyo. Aftershocks being reported of a 7.1, and a tsunami. We've already seen the video of a tsunami in Japan, and we have a warning right now, a tsunami warning in effect for Hawaii. Expected to be there around 3 o'clock. o'clock in the morning local time.
That's right. We'll continue to monitor the situation as it unfolds. New video, new images coming in, new information from the tsunami warning centers as we watch the areas that are going to be impacted here as we head through the early morning hours. So it's a scary situation. A lot of people may be, sleeping and not knowing how to get notified, but hopefully everyone's abreast of the situation now.
And be sure to stay with us here on the Weather Channel. From the beginning, we were here telling you all about this, and we are going to stay with this story here on the Weather Channel. 8.9 earthquake off the coast of Japan.
Helicopter up in northern Miyagi Prefecture, where a tsunami obviously coming in several sweeps, hitting Miyagi Prefecture, Sendai, Japan. Remember that tsunami comes in several waves and several sets. It doesn't come in just one set. Additional sets go moving upstream. Miyagi Prefecture, tsunami waves in Sendai area. A large part of the city has been struck, engulfed by this tsunami. Farms being washed away along with houses. We don't know the extent of the damage or the number of casualties or the number of injured yet at this time, but obviously that tsunami being extremely large. You can see the white tsunami waves moving extremely rapidly upstream. You're seeing live coverage of a tsunami moving upstream in Miyagi Prefecture in Sendai City from the Pacific Ocean, engulfing a large part of the area. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center has issued a tsunami warning not just for this area, but for Russia, Marcus Island, the Northern Marianas, Guam, Wake Island, and Taiwan. For those of you near the coast or living in the coastal areas, please do move to higher ground. The tsunami has already hit several times along the Pacific coast area of Japan. That tsunami, that huge tsunami you can see from our live helicopter cameras hitting Miyagi Prefecture in northern Japan in Sendai City. It's from the major earthquake that hit Japan on Friday afternoon. Japan's meteorological agency revising the quake upwards to the magnitude of 8.4, one of the largest earthquakes since the 1995 earthquake that hit the greater Hanshin area. It's been over an hour and a half, and we're still seeing large tsunamis moving and hitting the area of Sendai in Miyagi Prefecture. That tsunami obviously is going to hit the coastal areas as we speak. We do not know the extent of the damage at this time, but obviously a huge tsunami hitting the coastal area of Miyagi Prefecture, Sendo area, in the Sendai City area. More than 4 million buildings in Tokyo, more than 4 million buildings in Tokyo and surrounding areas lost power soon after the quake. There has also been massive power failure in areas hit hard by the quake in the northeastern part of the country. More than 4 million buildings in Tokyo and surrounding areas lost power soon after the quake. There's also been a massive power failure in the area hit hard by the quake in the northeastern part of the country. Once again, more than 4 million buildings in Tokyo and surrounding areas lost power soon after the quake. There has also been a massive power failure in the area hit hard by the quake in the northeastern part of the country. A major earthquake has hit Japan on Friday afternoon. Japan's meteorological agency says the earthquake measured magnitude 8.4. The earthquake hit about an hour and a half ago. You're obviously seeing some tsunamis hitting the coastal areas of Miyagi Prefecture and Sendai area. The agency has issued a tsunami warning, or has been issuing a tsunami warning for Japan's Pacific coast, along with other areas, Russia, Marcus Island, the Northern Marianas, Guam, Wake Island, and Taiwan. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center issuing tsunami warning for Japan, Russia, Marcus Island, Northern Marianas, Guam, Wake Island, and Taiwan. Deputy Chief Cabinet Secretary Tetsuro Fukuyama told reporters as follows.
We are prioritizing human lives. We will work with local governments to facilitate their actions, providing as much information as possible. We are going to provide information to those affected by the disaster in cooperation with local governments.
That was Tetsuro Fukuyama, Deputy Chief Cabinet Secretary. And here's some live footage of Ichihara in Chiba Prefecture. Obviously some fires going off. And it looks like some kind of plant there, We do not know if it's a chemical plant or what type of plant it is at this time, but it looks like some plant is on fire. And this is live coverage of Ichihara City in Chiba Prefecture. We are still feeling a bit of aftershocks in the studio as we speak. This is live coverage of Miyagi Prefecture from our helicopter in Sendai area. Tsunamis hitting a large area, destroying farmland, homes, sweeping away cars and trucks. The tsunami had been moving upstream. We're seeing several sets of tsunami hitting Miyagi Prefecture, Sendai area. For those of you living near the coast, please do move to higher ground as soon as possible. And for those of you who have just tuned into NHK World, a major earthquake hitting Japan Friday afternoon, with Japan's meteorological agency saying the quake measuring 8.4 magnitude, one of the largest to ever hit Japan. The agency has issued a warning, a tsunami warning for Japan's Pacific coast. Obviously, that tsunami already landing, several sets landing in northern Japan. In northeastern Japan's Iwate Prefecture, tsunami waves of over 4 meters were observed soon after the quake. The agency is warning that the tsunami could reach between 6 and 10 meters. Some of the tsunami already engulfing farmlands, homes. We do not know the extent of damage or the number of casualties at this time. Obviously, the situation is extremely fluid, things changing on a minute-by-minute basis. Transportation, the majority of the Tokyo area has been stopped. All transportation in northern Japan, train lines have been stopped. This looks like it's the airport. This is coverage of Sendai Airport, obviously completely flooded. This is coverage of Sendai Airport in northern Japan, where the earthquake has hit the hardest. Magnitude 8.4, about an hour and 30 minutes ago. In Miyagi Prefecture, northeastern Japan, an intensity of 7 on Japan's seismic scale. That's the largest from 0 to 7. It is the largest scale since the Great Hanshin earthquake back in 1995, but the magnitude 8.4 is much bigger. A major earthquake hitting Japan Friday afternoon, about an hour and a half ago. Japan's meteorological agency saying the quake measured 8.4. Along with the tsunami warning, the tsunami has already hit several times. And you're seeing live coverage from our camera crew on a helicopter in Sendai.
Honshu is the central island. It's the most populous. It's the one which is home to Tokyo, to Osaka.
Sendai Airport in Miyagi Prefecture. Tsunami has obviously swept right into the airport. You can barely see the takeoff platform of that airport. Otherwise, it's been completely flooded from the tsunami. You're seeing live coverage of the Miyagi Prefecture, the Sendai area, from NHK's camera crew on a helicopter, covering the situation and the depth of damage in Miyagi Prefecture, northern Japan. According to Japan Airlines in Tokyo, Haneda International Airport in Tokyo has reopened 3 of its 4 runways. It is allowing landings of planes which have been waiting above the airport. Japan Airlines says the airport might close all the runways again if further aftershocks occur. Narita Airport near Tokyo and Sendai Airport in northern Japan are still closed. Narita Airport near Tokyo and Sendai Airport in northern Japan are still closed. An NHK helicopter has captured images of an oil refinery, capturing images of an oil refinery in Chiba Prefecture near Tokyo on fire. This is an oil refinery in Chiba Prefecture, the prefecture right next to Tokyo. It's on fire. Black smoke, as you can see, is billowing from the refinery. An NHK helicopter capturing images of an oil refinery in Chiba Prefecture near Tokyo on fire. Black smoke can be seen billowing from the refinery. We're back to live coverage from our helicopter in Miyagi Prefecture, Sendai, northern Japan. That looks like the Sendai airport almost completely flooded from several tsunamis that has hit the area. Deputy Chief Cabinet Secretary Tetsuro Fukuyama told reporters on Friday that the governor of Miyagi Prefecture has asked the government to send self-defense force units to deal with the situation.
SDF personnel are currently contacting local governments and related agencies to assess the extent of damage. On top of the buildings at Sendai area and Sendai Airport, they're obviously moving to higher ground as the tsunami has hit the area. They're moving to safer, higher grounds. You can see that people have been on the very highest top of the roofs of Sendai Airport. And there's a look at the control tower of Sendai Airport. People obviously evacuating to higher ground on top of the roof on Sendai Airport, where a large tsunami has engulfed a large area of the city. Obviously some fire in Chiba Prefecture of an oil refinery in Ichihara area. This is live coverage of an oil refinery where not just black smoke, but you can see an inferno, fire breaking out on an oil refinery in Chiba Prefecture north of Tokyo. Chiba Prefecture lies right north of Tokyo, and you can see an inferno, fire breaking out, and large fire breaking out on an oil refinery in Chiba Prefecture. Black smoke seen billowing from the refinery, and it looks like firefighters are having an almost impossible situation to be able to control that at this time. A large fire breaking out of an oil refinery in Chiba Prefecture. And that fire does not look like it's going to be going out anytime soon. Obviously, we are reporting this as we see things and as information starts coming into our newsroom. Things fluid, developing as we speak. Several fires have broken.
A system here where there are set evacuation points that when an earthquake occurs, everybody knows to go there. That's especially true with schools and larger buildings. So I think at the moment they're just concentrating on making sure everybody's on high
tech. We're seeing now on screen certainly looked to me like an oil refinery which is on fire. I think was
of Tokyo. Our helicopters also at Miyagi Prefecture covering live the Sendai area where
Obviously, a large tsunami has hit an area engulfing big parts of the city. The tsunami had moved upstream quickly. It's engulfed the area. You're seeing live footage from our helicopters up in Miyagi Prefecture in the Sendai area, where a large tsunami has engulfed farmland, homes, cars. But we do not know the number of casualties at this time. A major earthquake hit Japan on Friday afternoon, about an hour and 40 minutes. This is live coverage of a tsunami.
This is a river of Miyagi Prefecture.
A river along Miyagi Prefecture. This is the river going up in Miyagi Prefecture from the sea. Live coverage of a river in Miyagi Prefecture. Tsunami obviously hitting, water going upwards towards the river. This is from our camera reporter in Miyagi. And it looks like the tsunami has engulfed several cities in Miyagi Prefecture. Live footage of Miyagi as the tsunami has struck the area, obviously engulfing farms, homes alongside the river. In Sendai City, this is, in Miyagi Prefecture. Tsunami, live coverage of tsunami engulfing the city in Sendai. For those of you who have just tuned in to NHK World, you're seeing live coverage from our helicopters of a tsunami engulfing Sendai area in Miyagi Prefecture. This is after a major earthquake hitting Japan Friday afternoon. Japan's meteorological agency saying the quake measured 7.9. Live coverage of Miyagi Prefecture, Sendai area, where a tsunami is engulfing the area. A major earthquake has hit Japan on Friday afternoon. Japan's meteorological agency has revised the strength of the earthquake. Magnitude 8.4. Tsunami hitting Miyagi Prefecture with this live coverage from our helicopters in the Sendai area, where tsunami has engulfed part of the region. It has washed away houses and farms. Live coverage of Miyagi Prefecture in the Sendai area. Agency has issued a tsunami warning for Japan's sea coast. Obviously, the tsunami has moved upstream, up a river. You're seeing live coverage from one of our helicopters in Miyagi Prefecture in the Sendai area. The tsunami engulfing farms and homes. Obviously, cars, trucks. You can see some of the tsunami, and it looks like some fire breaking out in the Sendai area after the tsunami has hit. Major earthquake that was revised to magnitude 8.4. One of the largest earthquakes ever to hit Japan. A major earthquake hit Japan on Friday afternoon. Japan's meteorological agency says the quake measured magnitude 8.4. The agency has issued a tsunami warning for Japan's Pacific coast. But as you can see, live coverage of Miyagi Prefecture in northern Japan, the Sendai area, the tsunami has already engulfed some cities, fires breaking out due to the earthquake. In northeastern Japan's Iwate Prefecture, tsunami waves of over 4 meters were observed soon after the quake. The agency is warning that tsunami could reach between 6 and 10 meters. Tsunamis come in several waves. For those of you who are listening to this program, if you're along the coast, please do stay away and move to higher ground immediately. You're seeing live coverage of Miyagi Prefecture in the Sendai area. Japan's meteorological agency revised the magnitude of the quake to 8.4 from 7.9, one of the worst earthquakes ever in Japanese history. It's a 7 on the Japanese seismic scale of 0 to 7. That is the same size earthquake as the one that hit the Great Hanshin area back in 1995. Fires breaking out, as you can see, live coverage in the Sendai area, Miyagi Prefecture, north of Japan. For those of you who have just tuned in to NHK World, a major earthquake hit Japan Friday afternoon about an hour ago, hour and 10 minutes ago. Japan's meteorological agency says the quake measured magnitude 8.4. It has revised it upwards to 8.4. The agency has issued a tsunami warning for Japan's Pacific coast. In northeastern Japan's Iwate Prefecture, tsunami waves of over 4 meters were observed soon after the quake. The agency is warning that the tsunami could reach between 6 and 10 meters. We're getting reports of several buildings on fire. We do not know in regards to the exact amount of damage at this time, but we are soon to get a report from Japan's meteorological agency. They're setting up to find out the extent of the damage. All transportation systems in Tokyo as well as northern Japan has been stopped. Airports closed in Tokyo, Haneda, as well as Narita Airport. A great earthquake has hit Japan. Magnitude 8.4 in northern Japan. Agency has been warning a tsunami ever since the quake, and tsunami has hit the Miyagi Sendai area as our live helicopter camera crew are up covering and showing you exactly what is going on at this time. Deputy Chief Cabinet Secretary Tetsuro Fukuyama told reporters on Friday that the governor of Miyagi Prefecture, where the earthquake has hit hardest, has asked the government to send self-defense force units to deal with the situation and aid the situation. Defense Ministry officials say self-defense force personnel are currently contacting local governments and related agency to assess the extent of the damage. Earlier, Prime Minister Naoto Kan and his cabinet ministers have gathered at the Prime Minister's office, where an emergency task force has been set up to respond to the earthquake. The task force will gather information on damage and prepare for more possible tsunamis. Japan's Foreign Minister Takeaki Matsumoto has ordered his officials to start preparing to accept foreign assistance. He has also told them to check on the safety of foreigners living here in Japan. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center has issued a tsunami warning not just for Japan, but also for Russia, Marcus Island, the Northern Marianas, Guam, Wake Island, and Taiwan. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center has issued a tsunami warning not just for Japan, where a tsunami has already struck, and you can see some of the damages so far in Miyagi Prefecture, northern Japan, and the Sendai area, but also for Russia, Marcus Island, the Northern Marianas, Guam, Wake Island, and Taiwan. For those of you who have just tuned in and living anywhere close to the coastal areas of Russia, Marcus Island, Northern Marianas, Guam, Wake Island, and Taiwan, please do not go near the waters. Move to higher ground as soon as possible. You're watching NHK World, and a major earthquake hit Japan Friday afternoon. This happened about an hour and 20 minutes ago. Japan's meteorological agency says the quake measured magnitude 8.4. The agency has issued a tsunami warning for Japan's Pacific coast. In northern Japan's Iwate Prefecture, tsunami waves of up to 4 meters were observed soon after the quake. The agency is warning that the tsunami could be between 6 and 10 meters. You're seeing some of the tsunami damage so far in Miyagi Prefecture, in the Sendai area, where some of the homes and farms have been flooded when the tsunami went upstream a river. According to the Transport Ministry, Haneda International Airport has reopened 2 of its 4 runways. Haneda International Airport has reopened 2 of its 4 runways. The airport had earlier closed all runways. Haneda International Airport has reopened 2 of its 4 runways. The Japan Road Traffic Information Center and police say expressways around Tokyo and northeastern Japan have been closed. The Japan Road Traffic Information Center and police say expressways around Tokyo and northeastern Japan have been closed. According to Toshiba Elevator, it assumes that most elevators came to a halt in the region affected by the disaster. According to Toshiba Elevator, it assumes that most elevators came to a halt in the region affected by the disaster. At the moment, the company has been collecting information about mechanical troubles. The Industry Minister's Nuclear and Industrial Safety Agency has put in place an emergency center for the earthquake. It'll collect information concerning damages caused by the earthquake to nuclear power plants around the country. For those of you who just tuned into NHK World, you're seeing live coverage of Miyagi Prefecture in the Sendai area where a tsunami has struck. A major earthquake hit Japan on Friday afternoon. Japan's meteorological agency says the quake measured magnitude 8.4. The agency has issued a tsunami warning for Japan's Pacific coast. Some of that tsunami already hitting areas like this one as you see live. Miyagi Prefecture in Sendai area where tsunami went upstream and has engulfed some farmland, some homes, cars, trucks, and boats. The agency says, meanwhile, the Industry Ministry's Nuclear and Industrial Safety Agency says it will have a news conference every hour to bring the latest information about the damage caused by the earthquake, obviously to power plants around the country. 5 have been shut down. Japan's meteorological agency has revised the magnitude of the quake to 8.4 from 7.9. It's the largest earthquake since the Great Hanshin earthquake back in 1995. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center has issued a tsunami warning for Japan, Russia, Marcus Island, the Northern Marianas, Guam, Wake Island, and Taiwan. Once again, the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center has issued a tsunami warning for Japan, Russia, Marcus Island, Northern Marianas, Guam, Wake Island, and Taiwan. And here is more live footage of Miyagi Prefecture, Sendai area. Live coverage of what the tsunami is doing in Miyagi Prefecture in Sendai City. That tsunami obviously going upstream, engulfing some of the farm and homes in that area. You're seeing a tsunami going upstream, engulfing some farms and homes in that area. Major earthquake hitting Japan on Friday afternoon. Japan's meteorological agency says the quake measured 8.4. The agency has issued a tsunami warning for Japan's Pacific coast. That tsunami obviously engulfing some areas in Miyagi Prefecture, as we're showing from our live helicopter coverage in Sendai. In northeastern Japan's Iwate Prefecture, tsunami waves of over 4 meters were observed soon after the quake. The agency is warning that the tsunami could reach between 6 to 10 meters. Japan's meteorological agency has revised the magnitude of 8.4 from 7.9, the largest earthquake since the Great Hanshin earthquake back in 1995. During that time, the earthquake was the size of 7 on the Japanese seismic scale of 0 to 7. It is the same highest level, 7 on the Japanese seismic scale of 0 to 7. Obviously, we can see from this live coverage from our helicopter in Miyagi Prefecture, Sendai, Japan, big part of that area has been flooded from the tsunami. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center has issued a tsunami warning not just for Japan, once again for Russia as well, Marcus Island, Northern Marianas, Guam, Wake Island, and Taiwan. For those of you living near the coast or are near the coast, please move to higher ground as soon as possible. Another tsunami is hitting Miyagi Prefecture, Sendai, Japan, and it looks like that tsunami wave is moving upstream rapidly. Live coverage from our helicopter up in northern Miyagi Prefecture, where a tsunami obviously coming in several sweeps. hitting Miyagi Prefecture, Sendai, Japan. Remember that tsunami comes in several waves, in several sets. It doesn't come in just one set. Additional sets go moving upstream. Miyagi Prefecture, tsunami waves in Sendai area. A large part of the city has been struck, engulfed by this tsunami. Farms being washed away along with houses. We don't know the extent of the damage or the number of casualties or the number of injured yet at this time, but obviously that tsunami being extremely large. You can see the white tsunami waves moving extremely rapidly upstream. You're seeing live coverage of a tsunami moving upstream in Miyagi Prefecture in Sendai City from the Pacific Ocean, engulfing a large part of the area. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center has issued a tsunami warning not just for this area, but for Russia, Marcus Island, the Northern Marianas, Guam, Wake Island, and Taiwan. For those of you near the coast or living in the coastal areas, please do move to higher ground. The tsunami has already hit several times along the Pacific coast area of Japan. That tsunami, that huge tsunami you can see from our live helicopter cameras hitting Miyagi Prefecture in northern Japan in Sendai City. It's from the major earthquake that hit Japan on Friday afternoon. Japan's meteorological agency revising the quake upwards to the magnitude of 8.4, one of the largest earthquakes since the 1995 earthquake that hit the greater Hanshin area. It's been over an hour and a half, and we're still seeing large tsunamis moving and hitting the area of Sendai in Miyagi Prefecture. That tsunami obviously is going to hit the coastal areas as we speak. We do not know the extent of the damage at this time, but obviously a huge tsunami hitting the coastal area of Miyagi Prefecture, Sendo area, in the Sendai City area. More than 4 million buildings in Tokyo, more than 4 million buildings in Tokyo and surrounding areas lost power soon after the quake. There has also been massive power failure in areas hit hard by the quake in the northeastern part of the country. More than 4 million buildings in Tokyo and surrounding areas lost power soon after the quake. There's also been a massive power failure in the area hit hard by the quake in the northeastern part of the country. Once again, more than 4 million buildings in Tokyo and surrounding areas lost power soon after the quake. There has also been a massive power failure in the area hit hard by the quake in the northeastern part of the country. A major earthquake has hit Japan on Friday afternoon. Japan's meteorological agency says the earthquake measured magnitude 8.4. The earthquake hit about an hour and a half ago. You're obviously seeing some tsunamis hitting the coastal areas of Miyagi Prefecture and Sendai area. The agency has issued a tsunami warning, or has been issuing a tsunami warning for Japan's Pacific coast, along with other areas, Russia, Marcus Island, the Northern Marianas, Guam, Wake Island, and Taiwan.